All right, welcome everyone to Simple Numbers webinar episode 11. Got a good one for you today. We got our very own Jack Prince from our Simple Numbers consulting team here to go over some analytics with you. And then we have with us our clients, Joe Giovannoli of 9 Sale and Tom Conlon of North Street Creative. A little bit different of an event as some of the other ones. We have done a little roundtable style and more presentation style, and this is really going to combine it all, where we're really hitting it from all angles here. Couple things to note. We have a Q&A box down at the bottom of your screen. Please put all your questions into there. We plan on holding questions until the end, just simply because we're moving from content to content here. And got a good piece of advice to remind you all that there are no dumb questions, and this is coming from the king of dumb questions. I was in the Army, so I heard all kinds of dumb questions in my life. So that was just a funny joke there. But let's go ahead and get this thing kicked off. Jack's going to lead it off with some marketing metrics, and then just as you all saw from there, we'll get down into more of the meat of this all with Joe and Tom going over some optimization of it.
Awesome. I appreciate it, Mike. So obviously he kicked off and let us know we're going to be having the Simple Numbers webinar today on marketing optimization. We got Joe and Tom from 9 Sale and North Street, respectively. Great folks. I actually work with them on a monthly basis, quarterly basis myself. And so also happen to be good friends on the side also, both knowing each other. And so we're looking forward to giving you today's content. Logos for anyone that really likes logos. I mean, it's one of those that take it or leave it. They both got some pretty unique ones. But today we're going to be talking about the main content of marketing. And really, if you've listened to any of the Simple Numbers webinars before, you really know that marketing really is the rocket fuels, like Greg likes to say. And right now, it's one of those hot button topics where a lot of folks have gone in and cut operating expenses, and marketing being one of them through COVID, and businesses has continued to move forward. And so it's one of those that right now you're thinking, hey, might not be the smartest thing for me to get in and truly look at spending my dollars on marketing. But again, it is needed. And so I would recommend that as you go through it, you definitely look at bringing marketing in. And it doesn't always take the first try to find what your groove and what your sweet spot is. And so we're going to talk about a couple different ways of making sure it's effective, and what are some ratios we can look at, how much you're supposed to be spending, and getting over really to that first slide here. What should your company be spending in marketing? Realistically, the first judgment point is, what is your company's gross margin percentage? And so when you look at this, don't necessarily take into your direct labor, as we like to call it, right? The folks that are in your business, or the cost of goods labor that some folks may talk about it. Just straight is, what is your company's gross margin, revenue minus non-labor cost of goods? If it's above or below 50%, it makes a big difference, especially when it pertains to marketing. And so when you're looking through here, you want to have an analytical view. If it's above 50%, your gross margin, you want to be looking as a percentage of sales in your marketing spend. If it's below 50% of sales, your gross margin, you want to look at your marketing spend as it relates to gross margin. Biggest question we get here at Simple Numbers on planning sessions is labor costs, labor rates, but the second one is going to be marketing spend. Hey, how much should I be spending? How much should I put towards it? We put X amount, is that right? What does the rest of the market do? What's the industry do? There's a pretty easy answer to most of those questions. And number one is, hey, the minimum spend that you should be looking at is 5%. Your target spend should be about 10%. Although I've got plenty of folks that can spend under or over that. And again, it gets into this last little bullet point here is, can you track its efficiency? Can you track the return on that marketing spend? And if so, then you can go above or below that as long as you're continuing to get the return. And again, data is king. If any of you know me, or if had the pleasure of working with me, a little jab against myself, but it's one of those where data is king, because you don't want to be stuck in a situation 2 years from now and need data that you don't have, and then have to build data for 6 months to have a realistic analytical view on it. Realistically, you want to have too much data now than what you need, and you don't always have to look at it. And so number one is before you even go into spending marketing dollars, can you build data in your business to give yourselves the best chance to track your efficiency, to track your return on marketing? Because if you can, there's some good things that can come out of this. And yes, using your forecasted as a percentage of sales or gross margin to get what you should be spending over 12 months is great, but you need to make sure that the return's still there. Just don't throw 5 or 10% at marketing each year and expect to get the same return. It's not like that. The market changes constantly. Marketing efficiency ratios we've got is marketing efficiency ratio. It's pretty easily named here at Simple Numbers. As you all know, we try and keep it as simple as possible. And we're going to be looking at making sure that, as you see on the bullet points here, the goal of marketing is to generate leads that can be closed by sales. And this is one of the first stumbling blocks we really get from a lot of clients is sales and marketing aren't the same department realistically if we want to be moving at a good pace. We need them to be separate. And so when you really look at it, you want to make sure that marketing is in the leads and your sales can go close those leads. Don't expect your sales to be able to farm them and close them at the same time. You can have that department, but it does become a little bit more tighter KPIs around sales if they're having to farm their leads too. It's also a big contention point that we've seen with a lot of clients on the sales front is sales guys come into a new business that or a new job, and in their old business they only close deals, and now they move over to a new company, they have to farm and bring in the leads also. And so be clear when you're talking to sales and marketing team and make sure that everyone's clear on what they do. As Greg has said many times before, most businesses do not spend enough on marketing. And it's true across the base. When we coming in, we say, hey, here's what you can forecast to spend over the next 12 months when we do our thinking model on planning sessions. And most clients are jaws to the ground. Hey, wow, I don't actually have to spend that much to get that growth. Well, what if you did? Can you push through that target in top line revenue, right? Can you increase your profitability? To get the efficiency ratio, it's pretty plain. We're going to take gross margin and divide it by what you've spent on that marketing, and that's going to get your efficiency. The best way that we can advise you to look at that is on a rolling 12-month period, so you can continue to see how you did the same time period, or how do you do every month? Is it continuing to change? The other point is you can look at your trend view. You look at gross margin costs in the trailing 3 months, right? You're rolling 3. If you can do that, you can not only have an analytical view on what you're doing on the rolling 12, but how's your current trend doing? Is it going to move your current rolling 12 market efficiency ratio up or down in the future? Can you stay on top of that? After that, we're going to get to another point of your return. What's your return on invested capital on that marketing spend? Most of you that have tuned into a Simple Numbers webinar or have read Greg's second book, right now the minimum return you should be expecting is 50%. And so again, if you spend $20,000 in marketing next year on a new type of marketing scheme and initiative, can you get back $10,000 in profitability on that $20,000 you spent? If so, okay, you're keeping up with what we view as the minimum return an owner and business leader should be expecting on any launch capital spends, whether it be marketing, labor, or technology that they'll be looking to get moving forward. The other side of this is our gross margin graph. We've got measuring market efficiency, but realistically, margin graph, we have it in a lot of our cash flow models. This is more transactional marketing based. And so if you have to spend $1 to go close $1 in the future, one of these big industry standards that should be looking at this is retail, attorneys, different things like that are transactional based. And so if you have to go spend a marketing dollar to go get that $10 in revenue, you want to take a different look and look at the gross margin here of purely saying, okay, what is my gross margin minus my marketing spend, and that'll give you gross margin, which is in the middle here of this darker blue line. And if what you want to do is look at the correlation. You're always going to have a gap between your gross margin and your gross margin, because the difference is your marketing spend. But as you move forward across time here, you can see this company had spent more on marketing, because they thought they were getting the return in gross margin. But when you actually looked at the gross margin, you could see across time here, when they continue to spend, their gross margin came down. And so again, on one efficiency trend, it continued to look well. But on the other side of the map, when you're looking at gross margin, you're not getting the same return for that marketing dollar that you're originally looking for on the transactional market. One of the big things really is attribution, and that's what Joe is going to be had. So just to give you guys a heads up on what's to lie here over the rest of the webinar, we're going to go to Joe at 9Sale, and then we're going to go to Tom at North Street Creative, and then we're going to come back for a numbers example towards the end of the call. And so right now we're going to give it over to Joe and have him introduce and go over his slides.
Awesome. Thanks, Jack. Yeah. So my name's Joe Giovannoli, founder and CEO of 9Sale. We're a search marketing company, typically specializing in law firms and construction companies. We do SEO and PPC. But what I want to talk to you about today that I thought was really tied nicely into both what we do with Simple Numbers and as well with North Street Creative. I want to talk about making better marketing decisions. So, of course, digital marketing and search is a piece of that, but, really let's peel that onion back a little bit and let's talk about what makes a good, marketing spend, what makes a good marketing plan, right? So we believe at 9Sale, we believe there are 4 core questions that you always need to have answered if you're going to spend even $1 on marketing, right? So first and foremost, where are people hearing about you or finding you? Right. So are you getting a lot of referrals? If so, who's referring you? Where did those folks come from? Did they come from your networking? Did they come from maybe this was a past client? Where did they find you? We're going to talk about all of these attribution pieces in a minute, but that's one of the first key question is how are people finding you? Where are they finding you or hearing about you? Next is, where did they actually or finally convert, right? So did they come through your website, because they were referred to you and they Googled you to reach out? Did they pick up the phone and call because of that referral? What was the journey? What did that look like? This is a piece that you sometimes can get on an initial interaction with somebody. Maybe they picked up the phone and they called you, but it's more likely that you're going to gather this information once the person either comes in to meet you or has an initial call. Once you build a little rapport, you can get some of that information. Are your leads generating more leads for you? So another key question is, okay, hey, we generated a lead from our website. We get 10 leads from our website. Do those 10 people, when they're done working with you, do they generate more opportunities for you? Are they referring you, right? What's the commonality between the people that are referring you versus the ones that are not referring you? And then finally, how are you measuring success, right? So I ask this question always in the first conversation I have with a prospect, and I get such a variety of answers from, oh, I don't know, I have no idea how to measure this, to I want to see X number of clients a month come from my website. So you need to understand what the success metric is. And this kind of goes back to what Jack just talked about before, about understanding your gross margin, understanding, how much you want to be spending on marketing and what the level of return, how many multiples of every dollar you put in do you want to see coming out in order to deem it a success, which again is going to come down to your profit margin and several other factors that, again, Jack's going to talk about. But first and foremost, understanding that lead flow is where we always start. From there, we like to make data-driven decisions. So once you're collecting all of this information, you now have such a wealth of data in front of you that you never had before. And it's crucial for you to store that in a place that you can access it by date ranges, or you can access it by, specific geographic areas, in order to really see what the success rate looks like. And you may want to look at it from, okay, what lead sources are generating the most revenue for us, right? And you can filter a quick spreadsheet based off of that. If you use a CRM, which we highly recommend, you can export a spreadsheet and go through the data that way. But understanding your lead sources is crucial, because again, if you're going to spend, let's just say it's $10,000 a month on marketing, and you're spending $8,000 in, digital marketing and $2,000 in networking, but that $2,000 is really what's generating the revenue for you. You really have to sit there and scratch your head and say, what's going on with all this other marketing I'm doing? Am I not doing it right? Is it, not being leveraged appropriately? Or is my business more geared to, really generate my business from networking, or generate my business from cold calls? It puts you in the driver's seat to allocate your funds, or potentially save money, because, hey, we see diminishing returns when we spend $4,000 a month, on this rather than $2,000. So, we're going to cut some of our spending somewhere else and allocate it somewhere else in the business. So, understanding your lead sources are very important. Developing an attribution tree, also really, really important. We firmly believe in multi-channel attribution, which is essentially, let's say that Tom gives me a referral, but I met Tom through somebody else that came in through my website. I need to be able to give Tom the actual, the proper tag that says, okay, Tom, came from this person, so I need to attribute it to them. But really, also the source of that initial person was my website. So I really need to make sure that I am attributing that properly, because, especially for the businesses that, may be transactional, the one lead that comes through your website really isn't the only thing you should be measuring to see if you have ROI, right? If you're only measuring the individual that comes in and not everything that comes after it, you are doing yourself a disservice, because you may decide to cut spending somewhere that really was the root of you getting great quality clients. Determining ROI from multiple, ROI multiples for each channel, right? So seeing what is search engines, or your website, what are they generating? What's social media generating? What's networking generating? And say, okay, hey, we're spending, $40,000 a year on this, right? But we are seeing that we're getting $240,000 in top line revenue back. That's a really quick and easy way for you to see, okay, hey, this is generating revenue. Then you work with, simple numbers, and they'll help you to understand, okay, but is that work profitable? What's your true margin on that? And, it gives you, again, a better opportunity to decide where your money is being spent. So quickly to talk about, really why search, why we feel that most businesses, especially businesses that work in the service industry, local, regional, why search works. 1.2 trillion Google searches are performed each year. 90% of people will search for a service provider before making a buying decision. Both businesses and consumers will search for service providers online. So, getting a referral these days is not enough, right? You want to look up that person, make sure that they're, they seem like they fit the bill for what you're looking for. You want to see what other people had to say through reviews. We find that this is really crucial in the marketing mix. Search accomplishes two major things. It's a lead generation tool, but it's also a brand building tool. So building a brand is not, just, hey, I have a logo, or, hey, I'm going to sponsor this event. It's more than that, right? It takes a prospect anywhere between 7 and 9 times of seeing a brand before they may interact with it. So you want to make sure that you are showing up in the right places for the right things. And search is one of those tools that helps you to accomplish that. So Tom is going to talk a lot about this, and I'm going to breeze through this pretty quickly, but conquering Google is not as difficult as people may think. It's tedious and time consuming. And frankly, that's why 9Sail does what we do. And that's why we specialize in what we do. But there are a lot of things that you can quickly pay attention to and put your focus on to make sure that you get the most out of your digital experience with your clients. So first, building a great website experience. Google is constantly building tools that they are measuring, core web vitals. They're measuring user experience. They're tracking how a user interacts with the website and typical user paths. This is all really important because Google wants to rank the best content and the best website for their users' query. So building a great website is not just about it looking good or not about it having every piece of content you can imagine on it, but it's rather the experience that somebody has when they get there. Can they quickly get to what they need to read? Can Google index it? That kind of thing. You want to identify what you want to rank well for. You can't rank for everything, and you have to pick specific keywords that you want to rank for. And then you need to start to build out your content and your topics around that. By developing a list of buzzwords you commonly hear, or maybe questions frequently asked, you can then start to build out, the topics that you're going to write about or the pages that you're going to build on your site. Leveraging keywords in content, right? So knowing that you can't stuff a bunch of keywords into a page to make it work, but rather you want to, use one keyword 3 or 4 times throughout an article in different places, really to signal to Google, hey, this is what we want to rank for, but also to signal for the people using those buzzwords that, hey, this piece of content may, answer your question. And finally, look for opportunities to work with your strategic partners, referral partners, vendors, et cetera. They have websites too. You can co-write pieces of content for somebody else's website, get a backlink. That stuff really does help you to, curry favor with Google as you try to rank. So I want to talk about 2 case studies because these 2 clients specifically have always tracked their revenue from marketing by channel. They have meticulously taken down every single lead that they've gotten. And I want to talk about what you can do, by having this data, right? So the first one is a boutique law firm in New York City. I don't know, I'm assuming that this isn't too difficult to see here, but you can see very quickly, just based on the green numbers, that they saw a tremendous growth in their traffic. But what was more interesting was actually the growth in the leads and overall revenue that they saw. They went from seeing about a 13x return on investment in 2019 to a 27x return on investment on their marketing spend, specifically with, in the search arena within, 2020, right? So 2020, a year that was pretty, dicey for a lot of people and really left a lot of people unsure. They thrived because they leaned into their digital marketing efforts. So we know that from their search efforts specifically, that they saw a 27x return on investment, right? So what we were then able to say is, okay, hey, let's see if we can continue to replicate this by increasing your spend and increasing where you're showing up and what we're going after. Let's see if we can continue to replicate that growth so we can see where diminishing returns start. This client, again, they track everything meticulously. They don't use a CRM, they use a spreadsheet, but they have a great intake process that allows them to ask all of the right questions, collect that data, and then on a quarterly basis, we sit down and we sift through that data to figure out, okay, what new people came in through organic, what new people came through social, and let's start pairing the referrals to their original source. So really great example. Another great example is a roofing company that we've been working with for years. They, consistently have doubled down on their search efforts. They are in a very small local market. So for them, the key here is that they want the right quality people looking for very specific terms. You'll notice that their organic search volume is significantly less, but they are generating on a quarterly basis, 100+ calls. They are getting, contact forms regularly, and they are now the go-to name in their market. When somebody says they have a roofing challenge, through case, polling and talking to their clients, a lot of referrals are being generated because people know the name. So again, going back to it's lead gen and it's also a branding tool. So I'm going to show you something really quickly. This is probably going to dive into a deeper conversation. I'm happy to have that conversation with anybody that's interested, but there's a tool within Google Analytics that's very interesting that not a lot of people know about. and it is the multi-channel model comparison tool. And long story short, if you set up conversion goals on your website, so if somebody clicks a form and you put a goal on it, Google tracks that. And what you can do is through this tool, you can actually see very specifically from any date range the conversions that happen where the person initially came into the website and then where they actually ended up taking their action from. So, in this client's case, 3,977 people initially interacted with the website through organic search, but only 3,000 of those people ended up converting because of organic, which means that the remaining 9 and change conversions ended up happening somewhere else. I would venture to guess, based off of what I'm seeing here, that they're direct. People would come back in directly, meaning they would type in the firm's website and they would, then fill out a form or they would click to call. So this tool is really great. It helps you to really quickly see where things are coming from and how people are finding you. So again, anybody has any questions on this, I'm happy to dive deeper later or on the side. But with that, I am going to turn the reins over to Tom.
All right, cool. Thanks, Joe. So North Street, we are a creative agency. That means we do basically logos and websites. We specialize in financial services firms as well as professional services firms. So Jack talked about how much you should spend on your marketing, and then Joe talked about where you should spend it. What I'm going to talk about is you're spending all this money to get people to your website. Now your website needs to do its job, and that's part of your brand and it's part of your website design. So let me see if I have control here. All right, the importance of a modern brand and website. I cannot overstate enough how important your brand and your website is. It is, when someone lands on your website from search or from PPC, you literally have fractions of a second to make a first impression, right? The person who landed on your site is either going to see something that they like and they're going to stick around and possibly convert, or they're going to feel yucky with what they saw and they're going to take off. Why should you care about that? You need to care about it because whether you like it or not, people do judge books by their covers. And so they're making a subconscious, when someone lands on your site, they're making a subconscious link between the quality of your goods and services and the quality of what they're seeing. So I'll show you this in context. Let's see. There we go. Sorry, just clicking. Okay, this is a website for Phoenix Ancient Art. This is a client of ours. So they sell pieces of artwork. For people literally spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on artwork for Phoenix to buy artwork through their gallery. And this was their online home. So I don't know about you, but if I was in a position to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a piece of artwork, and I landed on this site, I'm not sure I'd be too impressed, and I'd potentially consider spending my money elsewhere. So we redesigned this, and this is what the new website looks like. You can see that their logo comes in. And then you've got this really high-end website that makes, I mean, this is, as far as first impressions goes, this is doing it for me. You know, if I was in a position to spend a lot of money, this looks good. This looks like something expensive. And so it's aligned with, it's aligned, the branding is aligned with the company. I'll show you another example. Okay, so this is another client of ours, Drexel Hamilton. They are a service disabled owned investment bank. And these guys are, they're making big deals. I mean, they're sitting at the deal table with companies like Alphabet and Apple, and this was their website. So they were not, they came to us and they were not, they were just not being taken seriously by the people that they were in deals with. So I'll show the rebrand of these guys. This is not working for me, so I'm just gonna skip slides. Strange. I promise it looks better than that.
Tom, let me stop and go back. Maybe if we stop the share and get it back.
This is good. This is good.
Okay.
All right. So get to the point, right? So this is now you've spent money to get people onto your website, and now when I land there, you need to get to the point really quickly. You need to tell me who you are and what you do. So this is a bad example. We made this up. This is a made up law firm, so I'm not insulting anybody. But I saw a lot of this during the pandemic, which was, you know, you land on this website, and then the first thing that you see, it's not telling me who you are or what you do. It's like your latest blog post, or in this case, it's your statement on COVID-19. You've lost me here, right? If I was searching for lawyers and I land on this, I'm like, I don't care about your COVID-19 statement. Everybody has one. And now I'm going to potentially go and Google another lawyer. So here is an example of a website that does it differently. Okay, Otsu IP, dynamic legal problem solving for the pharmaceutical, biotechnology, and medical device industries. I don't think it could be more clear what these guys do. It's like I'm pulled in by a pretty dynamic image. They tell me what they do. All right, cool. I'm on board with Otsu. Okay, the next thing that you need to consider on your website is make it easy for me to do the thing, right? So your website serves a purpose. It's you're selling something, or you want somebody to call you or schedule a consultation. Make it extremely easy for me to do this. So this is an example. This is what this graphic is showing is the way people read a website. And if you want to know more about this, there's a great book called Marketing Made Simple by Donald Miller that goes into this in more detail. But essentially, they start at the top left. They see your logo, then their eyes go to the right, then they go downward and left across, slicing right across the center of the screen, and then they go left to right again. And so the way to use this is the top, you want to have your navigation. You want to have your logo, you want to have a navigation, and then that button in the top right needs to be the action that you want them to take. Is it contact us? Is it schedule a demo? Is it schedule a consultation? Put that there. Then in the middle, you want to use that space to tell me what you do and who you do it for, and then repeat that call to action right under there. It's like, okay, I get what you do, and now I want to engage with you. And then the bottom strip is a good place for something like social proof. It could be client testimonials. It could be the steps in your process. It could be your differentiators. But this is really how you want to use the real estate on your homepage. Okay, landing pages. So Joe talked about using search and PPC, and this is more specific to PPC. But if you're running a paid ad campaign, you really don't want to send those people to your website, to your homepage. What you want to do instead is to send them to a dedicated page that is like laser focused for whatever the ad that they clicked on says. So this is an example of a landing page on our website. This definitely is not our homepage. This just says, we know financial services. Here's a bunch of financial services images. Now contact us. They can scroll down the page, but the point is this really gets to the point quick. It's description of what our value prop is, some relevant graphics, a single call to action, and then as they scroll down, there's more info. There's a lot of ways to structure a landing page, so I'm going to show you a couple of different examples. Basically, it's get to the point quickly, and don't distract the user from doing the thing that you want them to do. There are even landing pages that remove the navigation of the site because they don't want you clicking on anything except that contact or consult button. Okay, and then lastly, I want to talk about measuring. So what gets measured gets managed. So there's Google Analytics, and Joe was talking about this a little bit, but there's also Google, there's goals inside of analytics. So it's not just page views, it's not just how many people click the button. You can actually get really granular with setting these. So it's like, okay, how many people downloaded my white paper? You set a goal and you measure it. How many people from our Facebook ad campaign visited our site and then hit the contact us button? You can measure things like that. How many people are watching the video on your landing page for more than 10 seconds? You can set a goal like that and measure that. How many people started filling out the form on your contact page but didn't complete it, right? There's really no limit to the things that you can measure. And why are you measuring this? You're measuring this because, to Jack and Joe's point, data. The more you know, the more you can improve your website. Another thing to look into is A/B testing. So Google makes this really easy with their Google Optimized platform, but essentially you can change the way your site looks to part of the audience and test things out, right? So what you're looking at on the left and right here is a super small example, but this website WorkZone showed half of the audience those sponsor logos on the left. They showed them in color and in black and white. And when they changed them to black and white, that resulted in a 34% increase in form submissions. So that's a small example. I mean, you can move where buttons are, you can show different pictures. You can really move anything on your website around. And the point is, you're showing it to half the audience so you can see what performs better. Did version A perform better, or did version B perform better? And when you learn which one performs better, you make that change permanent to all audience members. And then finally, there is heat mapping. So this is really interesting. There's some software called Hotjar that you might want to check out. But basically, what this is showing, this is showing how people are using your website. Once they land on a page, where are they clicking? Where are they not clicking? So you might think that you've put one of your buttons in the most logical place, but then you find out that nobody's clicking on it. And you can look at this heat map and you can glean a lot of insight into how people are using your website, what they're looking at, and what they're not looking at. And again, you want to use this info to improve your site gradually over time so that you're maximizing for conversion. So the points I made here were, one, the quality of your branding and website speaks to the quality of your goods and services. Your website should immediately tell users what you do and why you're the perfect solution for their specific need. Make it easy for users to press the button that you want them to press, make it stand out, and put it in a lot of places. Link your digital marketing efforts to laser-focused landing pages that speak to a very specific audience about a very specific solution. And then measure and adapt with analytics goals, heat maps, user recordings, and A/B testing experiments. I am going to hand it off to Jack.
Awesome, Tom. I appreciate you passing it back over. And so just a couple points that I think are hugely massive to point out, especially from what Joe and Tom both said, is number one, take it away that from Tom's point, I think the most important message that anyone could do on a website or anything in business is make it as easy as possible for the customer to do what you want them to do. We even talked about this in one of our Simple Numbers huddles a couple of weeks ago. One of our partners, Brandon Gray, went down to Disney World with his family and said, you know what, I think it's just crazy at how much you spend there, but every time you spend at one of their stores, you just want to say thank you for how efficient it was and how easy it was to purchase something. Well, again, there's a reason that they do this, and they make sure that the customer comes first. And so again, and what we go through and on day to day, something so small could mean 10%, 20% bigger or lower in business than what we're doing right now as far as top line revenue. And so, hey, give yourself the best opportunity as possible to increase that top line by making it as easy as the customer as possible. On the other side, as far as Joe's point, take him up on that last little bit of a hint for the Google searches, because again, I do it all the time. We've all heard about the little wives' tale that actually came true of, hey, if you put something in your shopping cart and you leave it there, and 24 hours later, you'll get an email saying, hey, we'll give you a discount for it, and then you can go back and buy it at the discount. But again, those companies didn't know to do that or not without those tracking features of where did someone come on my screen, where was that final conversion. So again, take them up on a couple of those. If you need to get in touch with either of them, Michael repeated at the end, but let us know. We can always refer you over to them. Again, don't be afraid. As Mike said, there's no dumb questions. There are no dumb questions. So feel free to ask any you have. And Joe won't mind me talking about this, but hey, Joe and Tom have marketing companies. We still talk about marketing on our consulting calls. And so again, it's something that even if that's your industry that you're in, it's a good focus point to look at as far as metrics in another way. And so before we get into this launch capital for marketing example, I want to give you guys just a little bit of an understanding about a few of the different leverage points and efficiency ratios and real returns that I talked about earlier. And so best way to show you is on here on the simple numbers P&L. And so gross margin, first of all, is going to be your top line revenue minus those non-labor costs of goods that give you gross margin. And then you're actually going to take your marketing expense that's in operating expenses, minus that from gross margin. That's going to give you your gross margin to have a correlation between gross margin and gross margin. On the other side, you're then going to be looking at the marketing efficiency ratio, and that is revenue minus non-labor cost of goods, which gives you gross margin. That gross margin number divided by that marketing spend. So that gives you that ratio. Before we get into this last little item, I think it's pretty important to know that under simple numbers, for those that are familiar with it and those that are not, we actually have marketing labor itself. So if you hire someone internally that looks after marketing for you, they are actually in a management labor bucket that we put them in. And so those labor dollars are not in that marketing spend that we look at in our operations or that we're talking about holding things efficient for. That is truly, are we going to trade shows? Are we doing PPC or paid ad campaigns? Are we looking at Google AdWords? Are we sending out direct mail? Right? Are we cold calling? Right? Those different items on that standpoint, that is what that marketing spend is. Travel, different items like that for marketing shows. That's what's in the marketing. It is not the labor item. So just wanted to clear that up. But wanted to end here with a quick little example of how you can continue to get return on that marketing spend moving forward. And so first of all, we got a company and you can see here in 2012, they did $700,000 of top line revenue. Gross margin was at $421,000. They'd spent $75,000 in marketing, and that produced for them net operating income of $63,000 at 9%. And so moving in before we got to 2013, they said, okay, we're going to spend more in marketing. And so they said, hey, we're going to have our marketing budget go up by almost $50,000 to $121,000. And so we said, hey, under that 50% return, that should increase your bottom line of net operating income by just under $61,000. And so total net operating income at 2013 should be $124,000. We fast forward to 2013, and again, they increased top line by 189%. They hit $2 million in top line sales. Gross margin got a little bit less efficient, but continued to increase, got above 1 million. They ended up adding that spend in there. And so they spent just under 200,000, and they increased their profit to $118,000. And so we broke it out and said, okay, this was the initial launch capital spend. You spent it before you got that return at the end of the year. And so there's the launch capital. The profit increase was 55,000. And so that return was at 45,000. So, hey, we missed the 50% slightly, but you were definitely on pace. Fast forward to to 2014's planning, and they said, we're going to throw another $100,000 at marketing again. And we said, okay, at 50% return, you're going to want to get $51,000 of an increase in profitability that would put you at $170,000 of profit. Moving forward into 2014, again, they grew another 78% in top line revenue, 3.6 million. Gross margin almost doubled. And marketing was right where they said it was going to be, just under 300,000. This year was different to the prior year. They got profit of 628,000 at 17%, and their return on the $103,000 increase on marketing was $509,000 of profit. It was almost a 500% return. And so gets into this unique situation that we're at now. As I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, at the beginning of COVID, most folks went in and cut all operating expenses. Most of that was in marketing spend for the most part. And so we saw those go to the floor. So far in 2021, as we're starting to get out of COVID slightly, the market's moving again, everything's growing business-wise. We've still not seen that marketing dollar spend return all the way to what it did pre-COVID. Well, we all know that today's marketplace isn't going to last for forever. This is a great example to show you that it sometimes takes 24 months to hit that sweet spot of what your marketing spend is supposed to return for you. Don't be the lagging indicator and the example that we might use on the other end later on, right? We want to make sure that even though you're taken away from profitability to invest in marketing now, that it doesn't mean that you drop off a cliff when market turns back down and then takes you 24 months to grow your marketing return up once you start spending. Work on what are some new things that we can implement in marketing now so that when the market does dip, we can continue growing still potentially while everyone else has a little bit of a stumble and hits that class plateau at the other side. And so again, there's the other side of this. If they said, oh, we had a fantastic year, and so next year in 2015, in this example, we're going to throw an additional $400,000. And so we said, okay, at that 50% return, we need you to get just under $200,000 of a growth in profitability that would take you to $825,000. They spent that. They did grow by 44%, but their return was at negative $9,500, a negative 2% return. Profitability didn't grow. They actually went down from 2014 to 2015. And so the example here is, yes, we can grow. Yes, we can move forward. But remember, spending dollars to spend dollars won't always get you that return. We need to talk about what Joe and Tom have done. Are we making it as easy for the customer? Are we tracking all we can track on the paid side and the Google Ads side of using the data and analyticals to make sure that the efficiency is there? Because if not, we can spend to spend and it doesn't do anything for the business. And so in this example, the last year that we looked at here, they went back to dialing back down marketing spend. They only spent $166,000, except this year they got that return back at 91%. And so again, it's not just spending dollars to spend dollars. It's spending dollars in the right way and making sure that you're getting the efficiency and the return on those dollars each time. All right, we've got a few minutes here, so I'm going to stop my share, give it back over to Mike, and let's field some questions if we have any.
Yeah, please send them in. We got a few here. Thank you all for that. It was excellent content there. Joe, we had one here you wanted to answer. Since the security change from Apple happened, what are your suggestions for tracking where clients come from now that we don't know those specifics anymore?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So this is a really developing topic, and there's a lot of unknowns, and there hasn't, so a lot of the big players, Apple, Google, Facebook have all made really grand claims, but we don't know what they're going to result to. And what we do know about iOS is that you have the capability of turning off your location services among several other factors. But the one thing that will remain constant about what I showed you is that they're not collecting and showing you IP addresses in order to display that data around, how many of your conversions came in organically, how many of them came in through direct channels. They have a lot of ways of tracking that without, giving away data. So we believe, right, and this could change, but we do believe that tool will remain untouched. You still will be able to see that data. you just won't be able to see like, what country they came from, or what language they use to search, right? Like those factors will likely go away. But this data will still be very telling for us to understand, okay, hey, you're converting whatever, right? If it's phone calls, right? Of your phone calls, 2,000 of them this year came from an organic search. Like we will be able to see that. So again, this is a ever-changing thing. Google dropped the bomb about, their ad platform and what's going to change and how you can market with that and whatnot. So we are actually constantly being asked to write articles about this for publications like law.com and whatnot. So definitely stay tuned with that. And we're going to be putting out content as much as we can when we know more. But for right now, everything points to that tool that I showed you remaining constant, because it's not divulging too much data or too much sensitive information.
Thanks, Jack. If you were going to refresh your website and you contracted that out, would you consider that in the marketing spend bucket?
Great question. Yes, it would be in the marketing bucket, because again, even though it's something internally, you're going to want to mark that return. And again, having that analytical view, if you know what your returns have been right now on your current website, even if it's been 10 years, you know what it is. And so, yes, it may be a more lengthy time period to see. But again, if you were to renew your website right now, and Tom's couple of examples were great in that, you're going to see the return fairly quickly in a new website versus a website that may not have been updated into 5 or 10 years. And so it's not going to take too long to see those returns in your dollars. And so, yes, I would definitely have them in marketing. If you wanted to get more specific, we could get more into the weeds, but right now having them in marketing is the right move.
Okay, good. I got a question for Joe and Tom each. And Joe, I'll start with you because I just learned about this the other day and I just wanted to get your thoughts on it because I know clients do it all the time. And I don't know if some do it with the help of a marketing company or not, or a company like yourself, but changing your website address, right? And so we were talking about Simple Numbers, in ours and potentially doing another one. What issues could comprise of just like, oh, hey, I'm just starting a new website now. What can that do to search and the ability of people to find you?
Yeah, great question. And it's so incredibly important. So when you can definitely change the URL of your website, but you need to do it properly, right? So what does that mean? So you have the capability of putting in redirects from your host, and Tom can totally talk about this too, because, a lot of times our team will put together a list of redirects that need to happen and hand it to his team, who will implement it while they're going through the development process. But you can put in redirects to point the old pages on the old URL to the proper new pages on the new URL. Some of the challenges that you face, though, is that Google's going to see the redirects, and it may take them some time to adjust, displaying this new URL. You may also lose some ground in that process, right? So you want to weigh the risk reward on that, right? So if let's say you have a merger that's happening and you're changing the name or you're adding, it's inevitable that you may have to do that, right? It may be part of a stipulation of a deal, and that's fine. And so be it. And that's what you have redirects for. You have to be okay with the fact that you may slip in the rankings a little bit, or you may lose some ground. But assuming that your content stays constant and it's still strong, you should gain that back over time, should being the key word there. It's a pretty strong rule of thumb, though, that we follow, is that if it's not absolutely necessary to change your URL, we don't love doing it, because there's more downside than upside at the end of the day, other than you having some branding and marketing opportunities. But again, something totally case by case to talk about, and that's what we've seen.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, good info. Yeah, Tom. I'm such a guy, right? Like I go shopping in a store, I go there. It's like I need a shirt. I grab a shirt. I'm out. So websites to me, it's like it could just say, hey, a lawyer, and I need I had a car accident. Click here and contact me. What are your thoughts on the amount of information needed on websites versus just get to the point kind of thing? I mean, is there a happy medium there, or is it strategic by industry, or just by your power in your brand? For example, if I'm clicking on something Apple, they obviously have a more powerful name than other things, but what are your thoughts surrounding that?
Well, Joe may have a different answer than me, so I'd like to hear what it is. But I think you need to get to the point. extremely quickly. You know, I showed those examples. I mean, a website should you should have your logo on the top left or the middle. You just need to tell me who you are and what you do and why your solution might be right for me, right? So it's like, what's key? One way to think of creating that statement is who's visiting my site, what keeps them up at night, and what can I say in this like statement that's going to make them think that I can help them sleep soundly at night,
Sure.
so that they press this button. And I think brevity is I think attention spans are microscopic these days, right? And so I think that you're going to lose people with books, you know, with books worth of text, but Joe's opinion is probably different. So
All right, let's hear it.
I was going to say, Max, and I'm dropping the gloves over here because I'm waiting for the fight, right? The typical designer SEO battle. But I actually do agree with Tom for the most part, right? So, you know, when you have a landing page or you have a homepage, you know, you really do want it. Again, you want to get to the point: who's coming to your site? Why are they coming? Get them into the funnel that they need to get into. What I would say is that when you have a service page, let's say, for instance, right? So you have a suite of services. For the service pages, specifically the ones you're planning to work on from a search perspective, you want those to answer their questions, right? So they may be lengthier, but you separate those with great design. You know, you break it up with images or recommended articles. You know, really leverage those pages to get people the information they need quickly. That paired with the fact that Google has their mobile first indexing, which essentially, if you've done a search in the last several months on your smartphone, you'll notice that you will see a yellow highlight over the answer to your question, right? They'll take you to the part of the page that answers your question. They'll highlight it for you. So having a lot of information on a page isn't bad. And in fact, Google is pointing towards a lot of things that say that that's what they would prefer, because they want their user to get the best answer to the question. But that said, we are not fans of cramming a bunch of words onto a page just for the sake of doing it, right? If you can answer the question in 200 words, absolutely do it, but make sure you're leveraging the space on the page for, getting them to convert or getting them down a funnel or, really giving them more insight into their question. So,
Sure.
Like I said, I agree with Tom for the most part. I think the service pages are a little bit dicier.
Okay, good. And I'll end with the simple numbers one here, Jack. Just give everyone just a quick and dirty. I know you mentioned it a little bit during your presentation, but the importance of marketing analytics. We're coming at it from a couple different angles where Joe and Tom can show you visits and who's looked and very cool stuff that's important to know, right? Like, hey, what page is getting visited the most? And like Tom showed the heat map of where are people's mouse are they clicking on that might help you set it up differently. But from an analytics side, right? So what we do, financial analysis, or maybe you have an analysis person in your company, what are just some key points that person can look at to help you make sure you're just keeping that marketing, that at least that it's working, that score essentially in front of you, to make sure you're at least on the right track?
Yeah, great question, Max. And you're going to want to look at it as an Olympic record personal best and look back across time and say, look, if I've always had this data and this is the first time looking at it, what's your best performance? Where have you hit highs before? How do we get back to that number? If it's something that's newer and, hey, we've got to develop the data now to go find those analytics, set a target, set it on a piece of paper, look at it, never look at it until 6 months down the road when you have that data to go look at it. Are you on where your brain thought you were, right? Because you don't want to view it and then say, oh, that's where I thought. No, hold yourself accountable, write down that number and then say, okay, I'm off or I'm on what my company's performing at. Then from there, develop it, try and continue to improve if you don't have historical data. And then you'll find out, okay, sort of the same as our labor efficiencies at Simple Numbers for direct side. Once you're running hot, you'll realize that, hey, this is unsustainable, and you'll start to get back into that groove. And so realistically, it's a personal best Olympic record type of an analytical view. What I will say is, look, I'm a data guy. I love data. Everyone that's worked with me, I've hands up admitted that many a time to people. don't get bogged down by the data, especially when your owner's looking at the financials and saying, am I spending too much in marketing or not? As an owner, this is something that you should have a thumb on the pulse. And if you don't, you should have someone that does it. But make sure when you're looking at the financial data, you always have that person or that data that you can go and look at. Because again, the financials are the things that matter the most. Getting bogged down into some Tom and Joe's is fantastic for the marketing department, but as an owner, sometimes that's not the best use of your time. And so I will throw that caveat in there of make sure that the financials take precedent as the owner and as the leader in a business versus those heat maps and other things. As much as they're awesome, don't take over your time with something like that when you've got higher and better tasks to take care of.
Awesome. Thanks. Well, all right. I got Greg Crabtree like staring at me right now. I must have did something. But anyways, we're going to come to a close here. All of you, thank you very much. If you all need to get a hold of Joe and Tom, please shoot me an email. I'd be happy to make an introduction to you. Great companies that do great things. I will kick out a recording and a copy of the slides for everyone who attended and signed up. That way they can review it, watch it again. As I mentioned before, need anyone's contact info, please feel free to get in touch with me, and I will happily introduce them. So everyone have a great rest of the week. I'll be in touch over my MailChimp account to kick out everything and send out the next episode of Simple Numbers. Take care. Bye.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.